honestly. We can really, really be raw with where we're at and what we're doing. And so that's the nice part about being the pastor here. We get to kind of do what I want. And what I want is to ask about these honest questions. I want to get to the bottom of this and really, really get real for a second, because if we want to grow in our faith, if we want to go to the next level to experience Jesus, we have to be willing to be real. And so this is a message I have been, in the making for a few months now, not just like in terms of preparation, but in terms of actually living it out. And so this morning, as we kick off asking for a friend, I'm going to take us to the Old Testament, 1 Kings chapter 19. It's a less popular chapter following a very popular chapter. 1 Kings chapter 18 is one of my all-time favorite chapters in all of the Bible. I want to encourage you to go home and read it on your own time. But when you flip the page, here's what it says in 1 Kings chapter 19. Ahab, the king of Israel, told Jezebel, his wife, everything Elijah had done and how he had killed all of the prophets with the sword. So Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah to say, may the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like that of one of them. Translation, I'm going to kill you. Literally. Like, by this time tomorrow, let the gods deal with me ever so severely. If by tomorrow you're still living, bring it on, because I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure you are no longer breathing tomorrow. Now, this is like another level of rage. When you get cut off on 94 and you flip someone the bird, that's like one level of rage, okay? This is a whole different level of rage where she is literally saying, I am going to do everything in my power to take you out. Everything in my power. So what happened? He really made her mad, is what happened. In 1 Kings chapter 18, there was a 3-year drought. So for 3 years, they had no water, which means they couldn't have any crops. It was a really, really tough time for 3 years. As Minnesotans, we know what it's like when you have to be inside because there's 4 feet of snow and you can't see over the snowbank. It's long. It's tiring. You're shoveling and you wonder why in the Lord we live here, right? Why, God, do you have to do this to us? It was melting and now there's 4 feet of snow. How did this happen? We know what it's like to kind of suffer through that, right? This is a different level. For 3 years, there was a drought. They couldn't do anything. On top of that, Elijah wanted to know God. He wanted the whole nation of Israel to know God and to experience him. But all the people in Israel were doing something different. They were worshiping this God known as Baal. He was a fake God, and he was sick and tired of it. So here's what finally happens, is Elijah goes, I've had enough. My God, the God we serve, the God I worship, he's the real God. So let's do this. All of you guys who worship Baal, all of you pastors of Baal, why don't you come meet me out on Mount Carmel and we'll have a little showdown. Your God versus my God. Let's see who's real. So what they did is they built 2 little piles of wood, pile here, pile here. They had animal sacrifices at the time, which is a little weird. Not going to get into that. But they had 1 animal sacrifice here, 1 animal sacrifice there. And what Elijah says, all right, here's the deal. Let's see whose God is real. So what we're going to do, all the wood's ready, all the fire's ready, but we're not going to light it. All you have to do is pray, and if your God is real, he'll light that thing on fire, and you win. But if not, I get a chance. So what happens in 1 Kings chapter 18, it's such a cool story. For hours and hours and hours and hours, these guys over here pray and pray and pray, and nothing happens. So then Elijah, the cocky guy that he is, goes, that's cute. Check this out. Takes 12 buckets of water, dumps it on his, prays, and immediately fire from heaven comes down, takes up all of it, even takes the drips of water in the trench. A hot, crazy fire. Such a cool story. But that's not why we're here, right? The cool thing is after this all happens, he goes up on the mountain and says, God, for 3 years, these people have had no water, no food. It's been rough. So he prays, God, bring the rain. And the drought, bring the rain. He sits up there and prays and prays and prays, and up out of the Mediterranean comes up and brings water. Crazy, crazy miracles after crazy, crazy miracle. Contextually, I want to put this into perspective. For Elijah, this was win after win after win. Elijah had literally just single-handedly watched God do things that were miraculous and awesome, things that didn't make any comprehension. This is the level of in your life, if you've been praying for cancer removed, cancer's removed. If you've been praying for a marriage restoration, your marriage is restored. If you've been praying for your son or daughter to come into a saving faith, they did all of it in the same week. Everything was lining up. Everything that you wanted, that you've been praying for, it all came to happen. Like, it was the most amazing testament to what God did. It was awesome. Things were great. Quite literally, he was up on the mountaintop and nothing was bringing him down. Things were awesome until you flip the page. That was 1 Kings chapter 18. You flip the page. You go to the next day and Jezebel is giving him death threats. And I want you to see how he responds here. Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servant there, while he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness. He came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. I've had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life. I'm no better than my ancestors. Then he lay down under the bush and fell asleep. You might not want to ask it, so I'm going to ask it for you. Asking for a friend. Is mental health a sin? Is mental health a lack of faith? As I'm going to show us, if we look at the life of Elijah, sure don't think so. Because here's the thing. It's one thing. If you ask a question, I give you an answer. That's my opinion. That's my perspective. But it is just that it's an opinion. But when we look at this truth, this word, and we see how God talked to his people and responded to his people, we see the full picture. And so many times in our culture, mental health and the church feel like this mutually exclusive thing. And the reality is, it's just not. Look at how God dealt with Elijah in this moment of crisis. Mental health is a thing. I don't want to get into the statistics because they're very sobering. But the statistics of mental health before COVID were in a bad spot. They were on the rise in a big way. Diagnoses of anxiety and depression were on the rise in a major way. Coming out of COVID, they were up over 200%. Mental health in a time when we were isolated by ourselves went through the roof, and not in a good way. Mental health is a thing that we need to talk about in our culture, in our society, in our church, because the reality is there are people in this room who are walking through it either directly or indirectly. And so many times the church doesn't handle it properly because it becomes this faith issue. It's like, you just don't have enough faith, just believe God. But Elijah just had the most amazing encounter with God. Miracle after miracle was accomplished. Things were fantastic. And you flip the page and it's all gone. He's sitting there at the bottom of a tree saying, God, I'm done. I'm cooked. Just take my life. I can't do this anymore. How does that happen? Right? So many times we say, you just got to believe God. You got to do this. And it's like, he believed God. Yet he is in this moment. So can we talk about mental health candidly for a second? Can we talk about mental health through the perspective of Elijah and God? Because quite frankly, I think sometimes we get it wrong. Because we have these complicated emotions, right? It's like, how can I believe in God, that God can do all these amazing things, yet still struggle with this thing? I'll never forget a good pastor friend of mine. They were young in their marriage. They were a young couple, and they were kind of just going through some things. He was going through some personal struggles mentally, and it kind of was impacting their marriage. And so they went and sat down with the pastor, good start, and said, here's what's going on. I'm really struggling. Can you help us? And the pastor goes, yeah. From what you're telling me, I think this is a relatively straight up issue. They're going, great, awesome. What's going on? And he goes, you must have some unconfessed sin in your life, and that's why everything is going to crap. And my friend, being sassy, looks at his wife and goes, what'd you do? Because I know I didn't do anything, right? There is no unconfessed sin in our life. Yeah, we're sinners. Yeah, we've got our stuff, but there is no glaring issue in our life that we haven't confessed. Yet that was the pastor's solution. You must have some unconfessed sin in your life if all this negative stuff is going on in your life. And a lot of times that's the answer we want to go to, right? Because life is messy. Life is complex sometimes. And when we believe in God, we want to try and put it into this cute little box of just believe it'll be okay. And there's not anything inherently wrong with that, but I want us to see how God handled it with Elijah. Verse 5, Elijah's laying down under the bush and he fell asleep, but he's woken up at once because an angel touched him and said, "Get up and eat." He looked around and there by his head was some bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank and then lay down again. Then the angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, "Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you." Has anyone seen Forrest Gump? You can raise your hand. It's okay. I won't bite. A lot of us have seen Forrest Gump, right? What does Forrest Gump get up in the middle of his day and just do? He gets up and he runs, right? I just kept running and running and running and running. He got his inspiration from Elijah, okay? Because what's happening in this story, Beersheba, where Elijah is at this moment, is 80 miles from where he was before. 80 miles. The dude was freaked out. He absolutely took off. Like we're talking like huffing and puffing and trying to get as far away from Jezebel as possible. He made Forrest Gump look like an absolute chump. He took off. Not only that, but then where he was a day's journey into the wilderness, that's desert. So he left his one servant back in Beersheba and took off into the desert another 15 miles to get away from this threat. He was completely petrified after experiencing God do amazing things just the day before. So what does God handle? Like what happened in the story? You saw it. He's having this meltdown. God, I can't do it. I'm done. And he falls asleep and takes a nap until he's woken up by an angel. And the angel says what? Just believe. Just have faith. Just trust me. No, he didn't say any of that. He says, hey, eat a sandwich. You've been running and running and running and running. Eat something. So with that, Elijah sees the bread, he eats it, and falls back asleep and takes a nap. Though he's woken up by the angel a second time, and what does he say this time? Hey, let's figure this life out. No. Eat. Get up and eat. The journey is too much for you right now. So many times we think that doing something physical is not spiritual, as if the solution to this is just to pray it away. Yet God says, no, you're tired, you're weary, you're exhausted. You need to eat something. I've got to tell you, I believe God can heal. I believe God can do amazing things. I've seen cancer removed from bodies miraculously. I've seen people who were going through a tough, major crisis saying, I don't know if they're going to live. I don't know if they're going to walk. I don't know if they're going to have any brain function. Will you pray and pray and pray and pray? And years later, they're playing basketball. I've seen amazing things over and over about God just doing miraculous things because I believe he can. I've seen him do it. But I have to tell you, if I got a call 2 days from now, on Tuesday, from my son's school, and they said, hey, Mr. Mum, your son was playing on the playground, and he slipped off the monkey bars and broke his arm. We just want to let you know. I got to tell you, I wouldn't be like, let me just pray about it quick. Let me just stop what I'm doing and just pray that it miraculous gets healed. I believe he can do it. I do. I got to tell you, on my way to the school, I'd be praying the whole way. God, would you just heal Ellis? Would you heal him? Would you take care of his arm? But I got to also tell you, I take him right to the hospital too, to get a cast on his arm. Why? Because God can heal through a variety of different ways. I believe he can heal miraculously, yeah. You know what I also believe? That he gave some people some really big brains. Bigger than Riley's, at least. brains so big, though, that they know how to learn how to splint an arm. I believe God gives doctors knowledge and expertise and experiences that allow them to take care of people. I believe that. And so I believe that God can use doctors to heal people. I really do believe that. Just because it makes logical sense, does that mean it's any less of a thing? No. Because sometimes spiritual things take physical appearances. God says, hey, you got to get up and eat. You got to take a nap. You're going through a whole bunch right now. You've been running for your life. Slow down. Slow down. We'll handle this. We'll get to the bottom of this. But right now, you just need to eat something. Take a nap. Rest. Your mental health is not a sin, nor is it just an emotional issue. The science nerd in me geeks out about this stuff. On top of the fact that I've been through it personally, so it's all the more motivating. And the literal definition of depression is a lack of hormones and endorphins in your brain that allow you to experience joy. Dopamine and serotonin are the chemicals inside your brain that allow you to feel joy and happiness and peace. When you are clinically depressed, by definition, it's saying your brain is not producing enough of those chemicals. That is why you are that's why you're experiencing this depression. So yeah, you can try and think better. Yeah, for sure. But if your brain's not doing what it's supposed to do, it won't help. In the same way, hey buddy, your arm's busted in half. Just don't think about it. Right? Let's play some catch in the yard. Just don't think about it. Think positive. If his arm is busted in half, no matter how much good thinking he does, it's not going to function the way it's supposed to. Your brain's the same way. Don't limit God healing by thinking he doesn't take on physical nature. He can heal you sitting here in church. He can also heal you in a therapist's office. He can heal you coming up to get prayer in the same way he can heal you by being in the doctor. It just takes on a variety of different ways. So is your mental health a sin? No. Is it a lack of faith? No. It's just life. And Elijah, a man that I believe, imagine a man that is truly amazing, experienced the same exact thing. Your physical health and your mental health often are very intricately interwoven. I'm not saying just going to the buffet and taking a 10-hour nap is going to solve your issues. Dang it. But it's going to help. It's going to help. It's tough to climb out of this mental hole when you're running on 4 cups of coffee a day, 3 hours of sleep, and you can't sleep because you're so worried. You got to be able to hit the reset button. Elijah did, and he listened to what God was telling him to do. Verse 8. So he got up and he ate and he drank. Good choice. Strengthened by that food, he traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Oreb, the mountain of God. And there he went into a cave and spent the night. And the word of the Lord came to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" God's got a plan. He knew he was going to take him to this moment in this mountain right here and right now. But to get there, you see that? It was 40 days journey, 200 miles. Jumping in your car and going 200 miles is like a trek alone. This dude is walking for 200 miles over the course of 40 days to get to this mountain. This mountain, also known as Mount Sinai, where Moses experienced God in a big, big way. And he gets there and God is saying to him, "Hey, Elijah, what are you doing here? Why are you here?" Look what Elijah says. He replied, "I've been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, torn down your altars, put your prophets to death with the sword. I'm the only one left. And now they're trying to kill me too." I love Elijah. He's just raw. He's honest. God said, "Hey, why are you here?" "Well, you see, God, I've been following you doing what you told me to do, and it's been just terrible, okay? No one's listening to me. No one's following you. They're trying to kill me. Thanks for that, by the way. That was really nice of you. Life is the worst. Why am I here? Because life is just going completely into the trash right now. That's why I'm here. Thanks for asking. But he's honest. He's raw. And look how God responds. The Lord said, go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord's about to pass by. And a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart, shattered the rocks before the Lord, but the Lord was not in it. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake either. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face and went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. And then a voice said to him, what are you doing here, Elijah? What are you doing here, Elijah? He sent a tornado, sent an earthquake, sent a fire. Sounds like Minnesota, honestly. But after all of that, it says God was not in it. And then he whispers to Elijah, what are you doing here? See, if the first solution to a mental health problem is food, the second one is faith. Something my dad tells me all the time, something I'm aware of every single time I grab my dog and go out hunting and get alone. I always hear this in the back of my head from my dad. The silence is deafening, isn't it? The silence is deafening. When you're by yourself, when you're out in nature and there's no one else and nothing else around you, and it's just still and quiet, it's almost loud how quiet it is. Because there's just an absence of sound. And we live in a very loud world. So when it's just quiet and still, peaceful, it's deafening. God sends all of this stuff, crazy phenomenons, an earthquake, a fire, a tornado. But where was God in the whisper? In the whisper. When you're out in the silence, you hear really, really good. What he was doing in this moment is God was saying, Elijah, I can send a fire. I can send an earthquake. I can send a tornado. I am that powerful, but guess what? I'm going to speak to you in a whisper. Because a whisper is intimate. And a whisper is personal. A whisper says, I know you, I see you, and I'm with you. See, Elijah had to get the food to get strengthened enough to get to this moment. Sometimes it's hard to experience God when we're drowning in our physical needs. But when those are met, it's amazing what opens up and what we're able to experience. See, I think a lot of times that we're looking for God to meet something so specific. God, send the fire, send the tornado, clear this up, get this out of my life. I need a miracle. And when it doesn't happen, we're frustrated. We're annoyed. But God's speaking in a whisper. I'm with you. I'm with you. I know you're going through a tough battle right now mentally, but I'm with you. Your physical health and your spiritual health do not have to be at odds when you're going through a mental battle. It's just as spiritual sometimes to eat a good meal and take a nap as it is to try and just do everything in your power to pray. You need both. But I want you to see how they feed off of each other. When you take care of the physical, your spiritual grows alongside of it. God kept saying, why are you here, Elijah? He knew why he was there. He led him to this mountain, right? He knew exactly why he was there. But he was giving Elijah a space to regurgitate it. Why are you here, Elijah? Well, here's everything. Here's every reason why, God. Why are you here, Elijah? I just told you. Here's everything. What is God doing? He's allowing him to get it off of his chest. If you're not real with God, he can't make real change in your life. If you're not saying, God, I am frustrated. Why did you have to do this? If you just kind of go into this prayer time and aren't real and aren't honest with him, you're not going to experience real change. Why? Because he knows what you're thinking. He knows what's going on in your life. So it's pointless to hide it from him. He asked him twice, Elijah, why are you here? I'm here, God, because no one's listening to me. No one's doing what they said they would. I've been very zealous for you. I've been doing what you've been telling me to do. I've been coming to church. I've been stopping swearing. I've been stopping drinking. I've been doing all this stuff for you, God, and nothing's changing. That's why I'm here, because I'm sick of the fight. What's God's response? Because that's where it all comes together, right here. You got your food. You got your faith. What, God, do you have last for me? The Lord said to him, go back the way you came and go to the desert of Damascus. When you get there, anoint Hazael, king over Aram. Also anoint Jehu, son of Nimshi, king over Israel. And anoint Elisha, son of Shaphat, to succeed you as prophet. There's a lot to this verse. Go back to where you were. There's work to be done yet. You're not done. But don't go alone. Elijah keeps saying over and over again. I'm going to go back to it. Gavin, can you go back to verse 13? He says this over and over. Let me go back. I'm going on the whim here. Verse 10, he says it twice. I've been very zealous for you, God. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, torn down your altars, and put your prophets to death with the sword. I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too. Elijah felt alone, but he also secluded himself. He ran for his life with one servant, and then he left his servant by himself in Beersheba. He went all by himself into the wilderness. And now Elijah's by himself with God. And so what's God's solution? Hey, go back. Go back to where you were. Because Elijah, I've got plans for you. Your story's not over. There's really, really good things ahead of you. So go back. Don't quit. But here's the kicker. Quit doing life alone. Quit trying to just Lone Ranger this thing. What's so cool, I've missed this before studying it this week. Look at who he says to anoint. Jehu, son of Nimshi. Jehu was a military commander, all right? So those who are small in nature, like yours truly, having a bodyguard is really awesome. That's why I have Riley around. Keeps me safe. Anoint Jehu. Because, yeah, you're not really well liked right now, but guess what? I'll keep you safe. Go get Jehu. And while you're at it, go get Hazael. Because that really corrupt king and his terrible wife, who's really evil and corrupt, yeah, I'm kicking them out. And then in this place, I want a good king, so you can do what you're called to do with a little bit more ease. So go get that person too. And while you're at it, go get Elisha. Because guess what, Elijah? You're going to leave a legacy. You're going to finish your life with power and conviction. You're going to do something awesome with your life that you have not yet stepped into. And when you're done, I'm not done. So you're going to have somebody come behind you and take up what you were doing. And in the process, you're going to have a friend. You're going to be doing life with somebody hand in hand, iron sharpening iron. So yeah, get up and go back, but don't go back the same way you came in. I'm with you. I've been with you the whole time. And you keep saying you're alone, but you're not. 1 Kings chapter 19, it might not even be on there because it's just something that God showed me recently. In 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 18, he keeps saying he's alone. But look what God says to him in response. Yet I reserve 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed down to Baal and whose mouths have not kissed him. Your brain, when you're going through something mentally, it can't process the facts. So when someone says, just look at what you have, that's great. You can't see it. And that's the problem with mental health, is it's a temporary season, but it feels permanent. Look how much time God gave Elijah to process through this. 40 days on the way to the mountain. He had the experience on the mountain, and guess what? It's a long walk back. 280 plus miles. Your mental health is a process. It's not going to be healed overnight, but it doesn't mean it's not going to be healed. And you're not alone. You are not alone. I know it sounds superficial sometimes to hear that. But Elijah kept saying, God, I'm alone. No one is on this battle with me. And God's saying, oh yeah, there is. There are 7,000 people who, by the way, guess what? They're following you. You are the chief prophet. And look at the legacy that you've left. Elijah's on this mountain because he feels like what he wished would happen didn't happen. The unmet expectations were strong. They were gripping him. You're saying, God, I just showed up the whole mountain. And they're still not believing in you. Instead of Jezebel going, oh man, that is the real God. Now she wants to come kill me. Your unmet expectations will make you feel like you're failing. But there's so much to your life and so much to your legacy that's happening behind you that you can't see right now. And if you quit, it won't go through to completion. Mental health is a struggle. I know that to be true personally. But God gives us an outline of how to get out of it. Food, faith, and friends. And you're never going to ever maybe feel like maybe it will be with you for life, but guess what? You're not alone. And I firmly believe it's this moment in Elijah's life that became a defining part of his ministry. Because the message of this whole thing is hope. When I put this together, I was praying because I was like, God, this is a tough message again. Why do you want me to preach these things? But what I felt like in that moment as I was praying was, this is a message of hope. Because there's a chapter to your story that's not yet written. And if you're willing to go through this chapter, you're going to experience it. The most common verse on any graduation card known to man is Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans of prosperity and hope. It's a great verse in a vacuum. But he said that to them as they're on the beginning part of a 40-year season of inactivity. 40 years of nothing happening. And yet he says that to you. You might be battling in the trenches with depression, with anxiety, with bipolar. It might be your kid. It might be your cousin. It might be your friend. It might be anybody, anything. But the message is hope. It's hope. Because God cares about you. He cares about everyone on this planet. He gives us an outline of how to climb out of it and experience joy and peace and hope. So can I start the process with you this morning by praying with you? Because I believe St. Francis, East Bethel, Oak Grove, Bethel, around the world, I believe that God's beginning to do a work in it. And not just in it, but through it. Yeah, we can clap for that. It's bleak and it's hard, but it's not forever. I promise you this, God different. You see the world different. You see people different. And you will get there. Just trust the process. Trust Him. Ask for help. Would you pray with me this morning? God, I believe that there are people in this room who have been wrestling, not just with mental health, but with the solutions. Saying, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go get this appointment scheduled. I'm not going to do that. But God, this is you saying, I want you to. This is the sign they've been looking for, saying, all right, I'll do it. God, I also believe there are people who are walking arm in arm, side by side with someone who is in the battle. And more than anything, they just want to take it off them and see it be done. For those people, God, I pray that you would arm them with peace and strength, knowing, God, that you love them and you see them in a big, major way. And as they lean on you, they can be comforted and consoled. And lastly, Lord, I think that there are people who are striving and going, but they need people around them to lift them up and guide them. Jesus, I pray that for every single person in this place, whatever their need is, God, that you would be with them. That's the reason you died on the cross, so that we can be close to you, that we can leave our sin, our mistakes, our screw-ups, our regrets, we can leave them on the cross. And in exchange, we can be free to live the life you've called us to live. And we can experience you in a new way that way. And I pray for those in the room who want that. They would know all they have to do is acknowledge that, God, I've made some mistakes, but I want you in my life. And in that moment, God, you take the sin away and you become close to them. God, I am believing that the stronghold of mental health in lives in this room, in lives in our community, are going to be broken in your name. Through a variety of different ways, I believe they're going to be broken. So Jesus, we ask you to do that. We ask you to bring us hope in the in-between. In Jesus' name, amen. Can we give God some praise for what he's going to do? If you want to kill two birds with one stone, you want food and friends, join us up at Mansetti's. If you're a dude, if you're a lady, we'll figure out another solution, okay? But hey, have a great week. We'll see you guys next Sunday.
Darkest night.